Hi folks, HR Funk here. With a rifle that I've spent many quality hours with, both in training and shooting on the range, this is my circa 1990 Remington Model 700P. This rifle has been extremely reliable and very accurate over the years, and not only have I done a lot of training with it, but I've also dragged it into more than one difficult and sometimes not too pleasant places. In any case, I recently found myself in need of another very accurate, long-range rifle for a project that I'm going to be starting, and I decided to look around and see what else is out there that might give me performance that I'm used to, or similar to what I'm used to with my 700P, but maybe be a little bit less expensive. And that's going to be the subject of today's video. And here is that rifle that I mentioned. This is my brand new and as yet unfired Ruger American Hunter. In this video, we're going to take a close-up look at this rifle and its features, and eventually I'll make it out to the range and we'll see how it performs. The Ruger American series has been around for a while, but the American Hunter is a relatively new variation. The American Hunter comes chambered for two different cartridges. It's chambered for both the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 308 Winchester. This one is chambered for the 308. One of the most distinguishing characteristics of the Ruger American Hunter rifle is this Magpul Hunter stock. And interestingly, if you go back through YouTube, you'll find several older videos where people took their original Ruger American rifles and swapped out the stock for the Magpul Hunter when they became available. Since that time, Ruger has started to offer the Magpul stock and several upgrades to the basic American rifle as a factory offered option. Taking a closer look at this Magpul stock, we find that it is adjustable for length of pull in order to tailor the stock to the shooter and ensure that shooter has proper eye relief from whatever optic is ultimately installed on the rifle, and also to be certain that the stock properly fits that shooter. The length of pull is adjusted by adding or removing spacers from the rear of the buttstock in front of the recoil pad, and 3 spacers come with the rifle from the factory. The length of pull is adjustable from 13 inches to 15 inches. The stock is also adjustable for its comb height, and the way it is adjusted is by removing and replacing the comb that comes with the rifle. The only comb that comes with the rifle is the one that's installed on it when you remove it from the box, but you can get either a shorter option or a higher option by ordering it directly from Magpul. Taking a look at the rear of the rifle, we find a very soft, spongy recoil pad to help with recoil absorption. And not that either the 308 Winchester or the 6.5 Creedmoor has a tremendous recoil impulse, but even so, for a long day of shooting on the range, that's going to be more comfortable. And the recoil pad is also somewhat tacky to help it adhere to the shooter's shoulder. Both sides of the rear of the stock have a sling attachment point, and also at the front of the stock, where I'll show you momentarily, there are M-lock attachment points to make it very easy to side mount a sling on the rifle. As mentioned a moment ago, the front of the stock has M-lock attachment points on both the sides and the bottom, and you can see that I've already used that to attach a Magpul bipod, and this is one of the M-lock style bipods that I've attached very easily to the rifle, and that makes for a very good platform for the American Hunter with this Magpul stock. The Magpul Hunter stock also has a wide, flat forend, so that if you're not using a bipod, it's easy to rest the rifle on a bag or another object that you might be using for stabilization while you're shooting the rifle. The pistol grip is angled and contoured nicely, and it also has texturing on both sides to allow the shooter to obtain and maintain a good grip on the rifle stock, even under adverse conditions, and it provides a very good reach to the trigger. The Magpul Hunter stock is compatible with the PMag 5 7.62 AC magazine, and one of these magazines comes with the Ruger American Hunter rifle from the factory. the magazine seats securely in the magazine well, and the magazine release is ambidextrous here in front of the trigger guard, pushing forward on the magazine release, drops the magazine, and as always, I have to voice one of my biggest complaints with brand new firearms when they come from the factory. This only comes with one magazine. I really think 2 magazines should be standard, and 3 would not be a bad idea. If you would prefer to outfit your rifle with more conventional sling swivel studs, Magpul does make an allowance for that by designating exactly where you would need to drill to install those sling swivel studs, and there are areas designated both at the rear of the buttstock and on either end of the M-lock slots in the forestock. The Magpul Hunter stock is manufactured from reinforced polymer, and it features an anodized aluminum bedding block and steel recoil lugs. Moving from the stock to the alloy steel receiver, we find that it comes from the factory with a scope rail already installed. The American Hunter rifle has an ambidextrous 2-position safety, and the bolt can be operated when the rifle is on safe. The bolt release is located here at the rear of the receiver, and removing the bolt from the rifle requires an additional step because of the height of the comb and the lack of clearance when the bolt is in its normal orientation. When I push the bolt release and try to remove the bolt, you notice that there is not enough clearance for the bolt to make it past the stock. But you also notice, if I can do this, that the bolt is free to move 180 degrees. And when I rotate it 180 degrees, I now have enough clearance to be able to remove it from the receiver. When I reinstall it, again, I install it upside down, move it forward, then rotate it back to its proper orientation, slide it forward, and then lock it back into position. One more quick note about the rifle's safety. It can only be applied when the action is cocked, and we can see here the cocking indicator shows us that the action is cocked. If the action is fired, the safety cannot be applied. So it's just like an AR-15. When the action is cocked, as indicated by this tab coming out of the rear of the bolt, the safety can be applied and the rifle won't fire. But if the action is fired, the safety cannot be applied. Turning our attention to the bolt momentarily, we can see that the rifle's action cocks on opening. Simply raising the bolt handle causes the cocked action indicator tab to project from the rear of the bolt. And also, the bolt has a 70-degree throw as a result of its 3-lug design, which I'll show you momentarily when I once again remove the bolt from the action. And there is that 3-lug bolt, as you can see. And as I mentioned a moment ago, that does result in a 70-degree bolt throw when opening and closing the rifle's action. You can also see that the American Hunter uses essentially the same extractor as an AR-15 and the same type of plunger ejector. The bolt is a full diameter bolt to make sure that it fits well inside the receiver, make sure it doesn't rattle around at all. And in just a minute, I'll put it back inside the receiver and show you that functioning. And here is that bolt in action. And it does feel very smooth inside the receiver. And the bolt throw does feel a little bit less than I'm accustomed to with other bolt action rifles. Let's talk about the Ruger American Hunter's trigger for a moment. The trigger features a blade style safety, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I also know they're becoming very common these days, and I can pretty easily ignore it. The good news is the trigger has virtually no creep whatsoever and a very clean break with no over travel. I don't know if you can tell just by watching my trigger finger, that is a very, very nice break. And I have not done a thing to this trigger. It is adjustable, and according to the owner's manual, it can be adjusted from about 5 pounds at the maximum down to about 3 pounds of pull weight at the minimum. And I'm going to break out my trigger pull gauge and see exactly where this trigger is breaking right now, because it feels very good. And here we go. That pull's coming in at just over 4 pounds. 4 pounds, 2.5 ounces. Let's try another one. Again, just over 4 pounds and very consistent. 4 pounds, 1.4 ounces. And let's try one more. And again, very consistent. 4 pounds, 2.0 ounces. And the trigger does not feel like a 4-pound trigger. I thought it was going to come in closer to 3.5, just because that is such a nice break on that Ruger factory trigger. Folks, I went ahead and adjusted the trigger on my rifle for 2 reasons. One, I prefer triggers on this type of a rifle to break at about 3.5 pounds. And I also wanted to see just how easy or how difficult it was to adjust the trigger. And I can tell you it's a very simple process. It does require removing the barreled action from the receiver. And after that, it's extremely simple to adjust the trigger. And I would like to have demonstrated that on camera, but as soon as I do something like that, YouTube demonetizes my video. So what I will do is tell you it's extremely simple and refer you to the owner's manual for the American Hunter rifle for very detailed instructions on how to adjust that trigger. So let's see if I accomplished anything in the 5 minutes or so that I spent working on the rifle. And this is always a little bit tedious to get the gauge in just the right place on the trigger. And that safety blade in the trigger doesn't help matters any. So 3 pounds, 10.3 ounces, just over 3.5 pounds, and I don't think I'm going to go through the process of removing that again to try to get that last couple of ounces out of the trigger pull, especially since the break is so clean. That really feels more like a 2.5 to 3 pound trigger right now. So I don't see any reason to try to adjust it anymore. Last but not least, we come to the barrel of the Ruger American Hunter rifle. And as you can see, it is a heavy contour 20-inch barrel. It is hammer forged with 5-groove rifling with a 1 turn in 10-inch twist ratio. It also has a threaded barrel for the attachment of muzzle devices. And as you can see, it comes from the factory with Ruger's proprietary muzzle brake. For those of you who are interested, the thread pitch at the muzzle is 5/8 inch by 24, and the proprietary muzzle brake is the same one that's used on the Ruger Precision rifle. It's described as being a hybrid muzzle brake, and according to Ruger's advertising, it's intended to reduce the amount of felt recoil and also minimize the amount of noise and blast going to the sides of the muzzle brake. So if you have people shooting on either side of you, they shouldn't get as much of the blast as they do with some other muzzle brake designs. The Ruger American Hunter rifle has an overall length between 41.25 inches and 43.25 inches, depending upon how many spacers are used in the stock. It weighs about 9.2 pounds. It has a matte black finish, and it usually retails for right around $700. And as you can see, I've arrived out on the range with the Ruger American Hunter rifle, and in just a couple of minutes I'm going to start to shoot some groups from it to see what kind of accuracy potential it has. I'm set up at a distance of 100 yards, and I've got several targets on the target board down there, and I'm going to go through several different types of match ammunition just to see what the accuracy from the American Hunter looks like. And first up is going to be 5 rounds of M118 LR, which is the military's 175 grain match load. Let's see how it does out of the American Hunter. There's the M118 LR. Let's go take a look. And that's not looking too bad for the first 5 shots ever out of that rifle. You're coming in at about 3/4 of an inch center to center with that 5-shot group. So now it's time to move on and try the next ammo. Next up is one of my all-time favorite match loads. This is Federal 168 grain gold medal match. Let's see how it does out of the American Hunter. There's 5 rounds of the 168 grain gold medal match. Let's go take a look at these. And my old standby load from my tactical team days didn't let me down. That's 5 shots in 3/4 of an inch. So there's 2 3/4 minute groups. Let's move on to a different ammo. And next up is a load that I have not tried before. This is Hornady 155 grain steel match. This is the lightest bullet that I'm shooting today, so let's see how it does. And let's go see how the 155 grain steel match did. And it looks like the American Hunter didn't like that steel match quite as well. But when the worst group so far is coming in right at 1 minute of angle, you know you're having a pretty good day. So now let's move on and try something else. And next up is another 175 grain load. This time it's 175 grain federal gold medal match. Let's see how it does. There's 5 of the 175 grain federal gold medals. Let's go take a look at the target. And those 5 shots from the 175 grain gold medal match, center to center, are right at 1 inch. So there's 4 5-shot groups with 4 different types of ammunition on 4 different targets, and not one of them is over 1 minute of angle. And I've got 2 of them that are sub-minute of angle. I'm pretty darn happy with that, folks. I think it's safe to say the American Hunter rifle is a shooter. Okay, quick correction on this group from the 155 grain Hornady steel match. I mismeasured it the first time. This is actually about 1.25 inches, so it's 1.25 MOA, but still one shot out of the, or one group rather, out of the 4, and really one shot, because this one low shot is separated from the rest of the group. But other than that, everything else is looking really good out of that rifle. And that's going to wrap things up for this video. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you order anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off anything you purchase from Optics Planet. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.